Because they saw that people weren't doing the work.
Yeah. Um,
The Rambam says,
I don't think it's because he saw people weren't doing the work.
or
I
that they
think it's,
couldn't do the work.
or that he didn't, or maybe he didn't want them doing that work.
Okay. Say it every
There's
day.
an Igeret like that. It's he didn't want them doing that work.
Say it. So then
He wanted them doing other work.
contemplatively.
Yeah. But okay. So, in the Mishnah Torah, he says it that way. It's not
In the Hakdama.
But in the Igeret that he wrote, he
Which
says,
one?
it's an Igeret to some Dayan. I don't remember what's right. So I quoted. No. I could find it for you.
I like
yeah. he says something quite different.
I'll try to remember.
That's the way it is with the Rambam. Which brings us right into today's conversation, in which we will explore something from the Rambam about what we've been learning. Iram bam dala ya ya mama ya mama iram mama ya ya mama da da ma Ramaya Hidaya Maya Heya Maya Amaya Mama Oh ho dum bum ho ho yo yo oh dum bum ho oh yo Oh, Marambo, Iridaya, Babaya, Hey, Iridaya, Iridaya, Oh, the ram bam ba, oh, yo, the ram bam ba, yo, the ram ba, Irida, Oh, bum 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 bum. Hiram bum boy, eyan baya jeda. We've been excitedly exploring this meeting of Moshe Rabbeinu with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which happens at the beginning of Elul. And it's really been taking us through the month. If you remember, we pointed out that Rashi says in Pasuk Yud Aleph in Lamed Gimel, the Seder Hazmanim, that describe the context of the occurrences of the meeting between Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This continuum of events from Shivas Arba Tammuz, the Shviros Haluchos, down to coming down as Achotim, Nishtabu Laluchos b'Yud-Chet, down as Achotim b'Yud-Tet, and down as Achotim, and then Yud-Tet, he was Ole, Mimacharat, as the Pasuk says, and then he did Arba'im Yom, Uvikesh Rachamim, Shenemar Vatnapel Lifnei Hashem, Uvrosh Chodesh Elul, Nemar Lo Valita Vaboker, Al Har Sinai, Lekabel Luchos HaAchronos, Vasasham Arba'im Yom, Shenemar Vahem, Ve'anochi Amarati Bahar Kayamim Harishonim, Maharishonim Beratzon, Af Acharonim Beratzon, Emor Me'ata, Emtzaim Hayu Bekas, which is a subject of considerable machlokas between Rashi and the Ramban, which you should look into where exactly Moshe spent those Arba'im Yom that were in the middle. But according to Rashi, he was up there, but it was just Bekas, what he was doing up there, Bekas, it sounds highly unpleasant. But in any case, when he comes back down, when he comes to Rosh Chodesh Elul, so then it's Beratzon, and so this entire month is really a month of Ratzon. That's the Hagdara of the month, is that it's a month of Ratzon, being Beratzon in the sense of being in a situation where Hashem is pleased with you, and being Beratzon also in the deeper sense of being a month of alignment of will, in a way in which our will and Hashem Yisbarach's will become aligned with each other with a kind of expanded awareness that enables that to be realized. And so we're really in very, very special times when we're in Elul, and as I pointed out, it's really, in a sense, much more of a preparation for Yom Kippur than it is for Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, in a sense, is kind of a interruption which deserves its own exploration, right? As Rashi, maybe we'll look at that next time. But really, Elul and the continuum that we're in is heading towards Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is really the event. Basar B'Tishrei, as Rashi completes this description, Basar B'Tishrei Nidratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael B'Simcha U'V'Lev Shalem. Right? It's beautiful, right? B'Simcha U'V'Lev Shalem, which is the makor of Lo Hayu Yamim Tovim Yisrael, like Tu B'Av and like Yom Kippur, which is like it's just this tremendous day of Simcha and Lev Shalem. And there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Salachti Kidvarecha, and gave him the Luchos Achronos. So all of this is in order to give us placement, right, in terms of the chronology, and also in terms of the timeliness of our exploring these events, right? This particular event, it's really important, because these are obviously spiritual opportunities that are in the air. So we really want to, mamish. So we really want to be attuned to that. Yeah. So we've been looking at this from different points of view, really, in terms of Psalecha, which was the first year that we emphasized, this sense of carving out of your selfhood, such that a Torah would be able to be written on it. There's no relevance to the Luchot Shniyim, the second Luchos, unless there is a Psal Lecha, unless you've been able to identify that which is the material of which you're made. This being one very important piece of the Yidaticha B'Shem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I know you by your name, and then Moshe Rabbeinu playing on it. Okay, so if you know me by my name, and etc. That whole sense of naming, which we took into a particular aspect of Elul, right, in terms of the Lulei, Elul as Lulei, right? The second time we met, so our exploration was about Moshe Rabbeinu's very specific insistence on Uvamei Yivada Eifo Ki Matzati Chen Beinecha Ani V'Amecha Halo Belechtecha Imanu. Insistence that Moshe Rabbeinu makes on changing the nature of the relationship. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, I can't walk with you because you're on a derech. And as for me, Rega Echad Ele B'Kirbechem V'Chiliticha. As for me, in one moment, I will destroy you. That being the problem, so Moshe Rabbeinu, in a sense, offers a revision of the vision, namely that it's not we on the way and you watching or directing. It's rather we're on the way together. We're on the way together, and this is his insistence. That the only way, and today we're going to emphasize the chen aspect of things, but the only way in which there's going to be a solution to the issues that have come up is that halo belechtecha imanu, is that if you're walking with us, and this led us to re-explore the sense of derech bichlal is much more than just being a path that you're on, but actually being a description of really of an existential reality of joinder in process, which is a joinder that comes by virtue of a common journey, a mutual journey, which was really the discovery which together we made back in the day when we were learning Masechta Kiddushin in the Perush of the first Mishnah of an Isha of an Isha Niknate, the Shalosh Drachim, that the Gemara says should have been Devarim, and answers no, it's not. You can't be married on the basis of Devarim. You can only be married on the basis of Drachim. You can't be married on the basis of givens, static phenomena, entities that are definable and are quantifiable. No, I'm sorry. You can only be married on the basis of a derech, and the basis of that derech is, in the Gemara's language, right, is based on the pasuk of of Shlosha Niflaim Mimeni Arba'a Lo Avinem Derech Nesher Bashamayim Derech Nachash Alei Tzur Derech Oniyah B'Lev Yam Derech Gever Ba'alma, which is the amazing description of these phenomena that seem to have some kind of internally generated guidance, even though there's no path that they look like they're following. But that's really what's going on there. There is how does the Nesher know where to go? There's no path. How does the snake know where to go? There's no trail. How does the ship know how to sail? There's no line. There's no track. Thank you. Let's keep going with the synonyms. but rather, although there's no synonyms in the pasuk, it's all derech, right? It's all about derech. I mean, this is, because we've gotten used to the richness of English, but really sometimes the paucity of Lashon HaKodesh is actually to the advantage, because it's all about one thing, really. And so finally, and how do you explain this strange attraction, this strange attraction of man to woman?
It's just the attraction of how you make it work.
Well, wait a second, but just the strange attraction. No, but I'm just talking about in terms of the strange attraction, where's the guidance system? What's the guidance system? That's what's going on. What is guiding him towards that? Why is he so taken by her? That is mamish. Arba'a lo avinem. I can never I could never understand such a thing, and you can't understand such a thing, because understanding is always a a mechanical, especially when it comes to bina, there's always a mechanical one thing leading to the next, one thing causing the next. But these are phenomena that don't seem to have any right. They don't seem to have any near cause. They don't seem to have any. It's what's it called? Action from a distance. It's like what? Where's the attractor? Where's the cause effect? Right? Okay, so this is so beautiful, because the Gemara quotes that pasuk in order to explain why it is that first Mishnah talks about drachim and doesn't talk about dvarim, because really what we're talking about is this kind of a internally guided process in which relationships and interconnections emerge by virtue of something which is beyond any kind of a mechanical explanation. And so now let's talk about the Isha Niknes. Right? Let's talk about the Kinyan as a derech, because it really only can be accomplished. It only comes by virtue of a derech, and ultimately, then, like Rav Michael was pointing out, it also could never really survive. It wasn't experienced and treated as a derech. And so this then, when Moshe Rabbeinu is saying Hodieni na drachecha, he's asking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's provision of the kind of not just the kind of information, right, that will provide him with an understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's drachim, but he's mamish asking for da'at of drachecha, which are very loaded words. I'm talking, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, kiviyachol, right, misunderstands. It's like, what are you asking for? Okay, panay yelechu v'hanichoti lach. Okay, so you want to understand the way I lead things, so I will, I guess, give you the information so you know how to walk. You're looking for a guidebook, huh? I guess you want the manual of life. Well, no, gosh, that was the first time around. That was the first time around, when it was the manual of life. I'm not talking about the manual of life. I'm talking about Hodieni Naz Drachecha, which then he says, right? That's only if you're walking with us. And so this expanded for us this whole vision of the nature of Bia. We talked about Zivug.
Zivug Sheni?
No, just about Zivug Bichlal.
Not so much.
Okay, if you just to remember, right? I mean, the whole way in which Rashi describes the nature of Zivug, and in the Sugya and Nida about Munbaz, Beit Munbaz, that were Meshamish Bayom, and the Gemara says, wait a minute, Yisrael Kadoshim Heim, how could you call them? How could you praise them? Right? Beit Munbaz Amelech, if they were Meshamish Bayom, Yisrael Kadoshim Heim, etc. And so the Gemara answers, because if it would be at night, so these were hardworking people, and at night they were tired. Okay, so Rashi says, well, if you're tired, then you don't have as much taiva, and if you don't order any taiva, and you might end up doing chas v'shalom, you might end up having relations with your wife, l'shem mitzvahs ona ve'alma. Oh my gosh, what a disaster. It's like, that's Rashi, it's like unbelievable. You might end up having zivug, l'shem mitzvahs ona ve'alma. What? Wouldn't that be the highest achievement? To have it completely without passion and without pleasure, without anything self-involved and selfish in that act? No, it's impossible in Rashi for you to be. You might do it l'shem mitzvahs ona, but you would not be mekayeh mitzvahs ona. It's an example where actually the kavana might become a disruption to the kiyum. It's a unique example. It's a unique example. I'm sorry. Depending. Okay, fine. But kavana l'shem mitzvah. I'm exaggerating because obviously you should have kavana l'shem mitzvah, but not if the only thing you have is kavana l'shem mitzvah, and not if that kavana l'shem mitzvah disrupts or distracts you from being able to be in the zivug b'ta'ava. It's mamish l'maha davar domeh, the way many people pray. You get so caught up with having kavana that you end up not having any kavana. What do I mean? You get so caught up with having kavana for perush hamilos, like saying these words with kavana that I should mean what I'm saying, or doing this l'shem mitzvah. The fail safe. Okay, at least I'm being mekayim the mitzvah. I'm not paying any attention to what I'm doing, but I'm here. I mean, you can't deny I did say the words. Okay, we can't deny that, but we can deny that you didn't do any. We can't deny that you did anything. You're communicating, and if you, okay, in any case, but it's mamish like that. In other words, you can end up, because of the intensity of your kavana around perush hamilos, missing what's actually going on as a meeting with the Shekhinah. Meeting with the Shekhinah, which brings us back to what we're talking about. It's all the same kind of a thing. In other words, you can have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu says, you can have Panay Elechu v'Hanichoti lach. You can have a guidance system functioning from the outside. You can have that, but then you're not going to have da'at. You're not going to have the passionate engagement, which is an aware, passionate engagement, which is the best translation I can think of the word da'at. Hodieni na drachecha means not inform. Off with my foot.
I couldn't find the Google invite.
Oh, so you.
That's why you came.
That's why you came.
I invited.
I just want to clip this on so we. Yeah. Okay, so these are things we explored last time, and we're advancing them in our understanding right now. So this is so that Moshe Rabbeinu's demand, right, is really a demand for this being a relationship which is one which ends up being described always in the terminology of love, in the terminology of contact, in the terminology of zivug. Right? That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is asking for, and then that becomes, of course, the hemshech, right? V'niflinu ani v'amcha mikol am asher al pnei ha'adama. That is what's unique about us, right? I mean, with other umos, they're willing really to maintain a relationship with you, which is one in which they're like a shifcha. That's what Rashi explains at the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. They're like a shifcha, in which the meeting is not of the intensity of a joinder of a life which is shared, but rather it's the functionality of the mechanical service of reproduction. So if you're if you're willing to be in a state of the mechanical service of reproduction, of mechanics bichlal, so then that's going to be the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is of a shivcha. And in fact, Shlomo HaMelech points this out. You know this. I mean, the Shlomo HaMelech who says when he's praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he is mechanech the mikdash, so he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when the Nochri comes and prays, answer him. Answer him. And when Klal Yisrael prays, so, you hear their prayers, etc. Yeah. And answer them? No mention of that. What? Because when it's the relation of shivcha, or a relation which is not of a joinder in journey, so then the interest is in result, because it's all about the mechanics of the connection. And so answer them. That's what they've come for. But if the relationship is one of a joinder of journey, in which it's like mamish, it's an adventure, it's open-ended. We don't really know where it's going. In the ultimate sense, we know where it's going, but in terms of what happens on the way, it's what happens on the way. So then that's a kind of a relationship and an interconnection which allows for a level of oneness which is only possible for a people that has chosen that's been willing to enter into a brit. Yeah, it's going to shleimut of Mashiach. What that's going to be made of is another question.
Oh, now I know where it's going.
Yeah. L'chaim, what do you mean? L'geula shlema, the car of mamish. But what's the question? But no. And so we pointed out last time that in a sense it's a matter of whether you choose asher karcha baderech or not. That there's a sense of the haphazard in the mechanical, not in the sense of like not just in the question of randomness or not randomness. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the nature of the relationship. In a mechanical relationship, so then it's in a sense it's really carry.
Yeah, your life becomes meaningless.
There's no right, exactly. Your life becomes meaningless to the process. Your life is in a sense a happenstance. You don't have any name. You don't have any name because in a sense your life is external to you. Your life is simply a product of the needs of the mechanics that need to be worked out. So asher karcha baderech is actually a choice. Some people actually make that choice. It's a very comfortable choice. It's a very comfortable choice. I just want to be a cog in the machine. Sitting at a table of people who are probably can be characterized as non-joiners. So I think we probably all, what's that? I think we probably all, have the experience at times of like, what am I doing? Like I'm just like, I feel like I'm out on a limb all the time. Why am I always out on a limb? I guess I like being out on a limb in some sense, because at least in that intensity of it, I'm always being faced with the choice of living and of choosing my life, as opposed to the moments when we might feel jealous of the people who are joined up and part of a bigger group, and just basically go with where the group's going and act like the group is acting. And I described last time, I think, about the bris, which was just so radical and irony, to add a bris, which is all about this, to be, and just complete unconsciousness around the event, because it's just a mechanical thing that you need to get done, and so, okay, but it's very comfortable, at least you can be sure you're doing it right. What? Noah. It is, right? Noah. Fine. Noah. It is. So, so Moshe Rabbeinu's insistence on Belechtecha Imanu, in a sense, kaviyachol, right? I mean, this is all, obviously levels of divinity that we're talking about, right? But so to speak, knocks HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of the stance of the overriding vote, and puts him into joining us in this journey, which would be like ilulei mikra kasuv, mamish ilulei mikra kasuv, like what? But just watching it obviously does. The dialogue between Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu inexorably leads to seeing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is being called to something which was not his, so to speak, original choosing, right? But on the other hand, as we pointed out, I think last time, it is his original choosing, as it says, as Rashi brings, right, and from the Gemara, that everything was created l'tzva'am. Kodesh Baruch Hu made everything l'tzva'am. Vayichu hashamayim b'chol tzva'am. That Rashi says that everything was created l'da'ato v'letzivyono, l'komaso v'letzivyono. Tzivyono, Rashi explaining, according to its will. So already from the outset, this was really the nature of creation. And Klal Yisrael, and what Moshe Rabbeinu is insisting on here, is really a reformation, like a return to the original agreement.
That's what a revolution is.
Right. Turns right back down. That's what all revolutionaries claim, right?
And it ends up going right back to where it was.
You had a comment you wanted to? So this is like a summary, I think, with additional enrichments before we step into today. Yeah.
Tivyono, that says everything was created according to its will.
Yeah. L'tzivyonam, l'irtzonam, l'da'atam, v'lirtzonam. Yeah.
It seems like what Moshe is negotiating for is not that our will be present,
Okay.
but that God be present.
Yes. Yes. Right. But in what Rashi describes, that's unavoidable, because really you can't really talk about. You can't really. Coffee is very different than tea. There just wasn't any
This is
tea.
true.
Yeah.
Tea in there?
So it's a whole different. Black tea. So it's like a different thing. It's like, but I think I can answer you anyway. Chemicals, it's just chemicals.
Better living
through chemistry.
Oh my gosh. What was that, Brave New World or something? I think it's Brave New World. I think it's
Dow Chemicals.
Dow.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Like in the 30s or 40s,
Yeah.
that was their slogan. Better living through chemistry.
They just became a joke in college.
In any case, so what did you ask me? But my long-term memory seems to be improving.
I asked how you like the coffee.
No, you did ask me something. I was going to answer you. Yes, and the answer to your question, which was, that seems quite different. You said that original status as opposed to this one, and we pointed out last time of the tzivionam, that it's not just about what we want. It's Kodesh Baruch Hu, obviously too, right? Because that's again, we spoke this out a little bit last time, right? The impression you're getting is because of the nature of the chronology, or the appearance of chronology. But obviously, the appearance of chronology is a falsehood, because he's talking to you and asking you what you want to be created as. Now, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we should just leave it at that. How can I talk to you asking you what you want to be created as, meaning that you're not yet created, and I'm asking you how you want to be created. What basis are you going to have for determining how you want to be created if you haven't been created yet?
Yeah.
Who are you, anyway? So, no, I'm just saying, so clearly that sense of chronology, even though you're right, the presentation in that particular version, right, of the Medrash there's another version which is similar, but in that particular presentation, it sounds like you're already there, and Hashem is asking you how you want to be created. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And what do you have in you? Even if you say, okay, so there's some kind of a presence, fine, okay. But what do you have in you that you would base that will on if you don't already have some kind of a embedded will? And where did that embedded will come from? Well, it came from existence, capital E. It came from the one who's asking you how you want to be created. So am I now in a position to be able to say, I have chosen how I will be created? Or am I simply becoming conscious of that which I was created to be? Which is always the question, right? That's the question. Okay, right? Is that what's going on? I'm just simply becoming conscious of what I was created to be when I make my choices. Na'aseh v'nishma. We'll come to be conscious of it later, but we already know how to do it. Of course. Tease out.
I want to tease out that it seems like we're dealing. We spoke about this a little bit last week. We're dealing with a spectrum where, on one pole is I'm commanded. I do it because I'm commanded. My will is not present. And on the other side is like I call the shots. Like it's all humanist. It's me.
Right.
Like I created God. This is my little world here.
That's okay. You went way out there. Okay. You moved the pole over. We weren't even talking about that. I mean, okay, fine.
Implicit.
Okay.
It's kind of implicit. Yeah.
Okay.
If I say I'm the measurable thing, if it's my will, great though, then it's my will. Anyway, we don't have to go that far. That's not really what I'm interested in. But if those are the two poles, and what we're articulating here is the partnership. It's somewhere in between like entire commandedness and ratzon, like entire commandedness and my ratzon. Then it seems like what's being I want to know, like in this conversation, it seems like what Moshe is arguing for is. Actually, no, maybe it doesn't work. Is he? I thought he was arguing for more presence of the divine.
He's arguing for Shechina. He's arguing for Shechina. And that's exactly what Rashi says. That's exactly what Rashi says. V'niflinu ani ve'amcha is entirely a question of whether he's going to be mashra his Shechina or not mashra his Shechina. That's the conversation. Is whether he's going to be mashra his Shechina or not.
Meaning, if we've got, so it's not on that. It's not on that. It's
on the level we're introducing, right? We're reintroducing into creation the Shechina, right? This Rashi, right? Rashi. I'm just talking Rashi. Uvamei yivada efo, yivada metzias chen. Rashi dibur matchil uvamei yivada in pasuk tet zayin. Lamed gimel, right? Uvamei yivada efo. Yivada metziat hachein, halo belechtecha imanu, which is what I really want to explore more today, of the chen. Ve'od davar acher, ani shoel mimcha. And in addition, I'm asking something else of you. Shelo tashre shchinatcha od alumos ha'olam. Now, what I'm explaining is that those are the same thing. In other words, the lechtecha imanu is not some, different request than v'niflinu ani ve'amcha. It's the same thing, because
that in the pasuk is clearly read as and therefore.
Okay, fine, good, excellent. It's all one retzef. That's what we've been working at since we started learning this. It's all one retzef. The psolacha in there, which looks like an interruption, is actually perfectly a part of it. The hodieni nad drachecha is not something which he's going to wait to do until he shows him the Yud Gimel Midos HaRachamim. He's building the context for it now. This is all one retzef. It's not like a bunch of patched together narratives, as some might say. Right? This is mamish one single retzef. It is. You see it. So the Rashi is pointing that out, that the Vama Yivada Efo Ki Matzati Chen Be'einecha Ani Vamecha Halo Belechtecha Imanu, and through that, by virtue of that, V'niflinu Ani Vamcha. Of course, that's obvious in the pasuk. It doesn't. It looks like it's not so obvious in Rashi. He's adding something else. He's not adding something else. That's what it means. What it means for the Shekhinah to be here, the realization and the manifestation of the Shekhinah is completely dependent upon this. And I'll tell you where Rashi knows it from. Rashi knows it from the very first time we have walking. Right? Would you mind making me a cup of tea? Now that this is worn off. Anyhow, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I was, did a chuppah last night, and then it just kept running on and on and on, and I didn't sit down to eat until like 11. And then I had a chavrusa this morning at 4:45. So that's good, yeah. So that's the way I'm functioning right now. I wouldn't call it better living. But
sometimes it's just living.
It's better staying. Keep my head above water.
Can I work?
Wait, let me just finish this. You know where Rashi knows this from? He knows it from the very first time there's walking in the Chumash. Where's the first time there's walking in the Chumash? Gan Eden. And where's the walking in? Right, where he hears the Kol Hashem Mithalech Bagan. Right, Kol Hashem Mithalech Bagan. So the Kol Hashem Mithalech Bagan. Right, it's the first time. So obviously, that's, if we're talking about the walking and being able to walk with us. So we want to see what that walking is about and how we lost that walking. Just watch how these themes are just so woven. We might not get to what I was going to talk about today, but we're getting to other good things. And that is that, that the first time we have it is Vayishma'u. We're talking now in Bereshis Gimel Chet. Vayishma'u. This is after they've eaten from, of course, the Eitz Hadat. So after they've eaten from the Eitz Hadat, Vayishma'u et kol Adonai Elohim, mithalech bagan l'ruach hayom. Vayitchabeh ha'adam v'ishto mipnei Adonai Elohim b'toch Eitz Hagan. So what is this mithalech thing? Why isn't he just holech? What is this, self-reflexive mithalech? So Rashi says, Rashi, unfortunately, right, it's in the Medrash, it's ma shamu et kol hashchina shaya mithalech bagan. But actually, that's not what the Medrash says. The Medrash says mithalech means that he was climbing up out of the gan. That his walking in himself was no longer a walking in the world. The self-reflexive sense is a Medrash. The Medrash Rabbah says this. I thought it was in Rashi, but in the Medrash says that the mithalech was the beginning of the histalkut of the Shechina, and that's why it's mithalech. Not that I saw any of the Mefarshim say it like this, but that's what I understand that means. And the point is, mithalech is that it becomes a walking closed within itself. The walking closed within itself means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has left his joinder with the unfolding human history, and therefore the first walking of the Shechina, the Medrash says, is the Shechina was mistalek to the Rakia Rishon, and then with Cain and Hevel it was mistalek to the Rakia Sheni, and then with the Dor Hamabul, it was mistalik to the Rakia Shlishi, etc. It just keeps going higher and higher and higher. And then one by one, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Levi, Amram, Moshe, bring it down the 7 Madregot until Moshe finally reunites the Shechina in the world. When does he do that? This is now just the Medrash. When does he do that? He does that with the Mishkan. When does he really move, in terms of what we're talking about, the world into being a place where Hashem would be dwelling among us? In these moments now. What's going on right now? This is the definition of the return of the Shekhinah, of Lech Techa Imanu. It's the end of the mithalech. That's over, God. What we need is the reality of Shekhinah. Now, to put it in more discursive language, the reality of Shekhinah is that there's a divine reality, or in putting it in our self-reflexive terms, a consciousness of the divine, which is one in which our awareness and the divine reality are so one with each other that there is a joint unfolding that is a reflection of the level of consciousness that we achieve, in as much as there is a level of consciousness achieved that is broad and deep and participant with what reality is. Then, in as much as there is that, there is divine presence. So for there to be Shekhinah, there must be a halicha b'yachad. That's what Rashi means here. So not that that automatically implies that you're not mashrei your Shekhinah on the umos. There's a distinction here in what I'm asking for and what they have asked for. They were unwilling to enter the bris. They said, God offered it to them. They said, well, if there's Geneva, we have already defined ourselves and our identity as being Ganavim. So that's not for us. What do you mean? There's no development? There's no change? There's no evolution? No, we're as we are. We're as we are.
The fact that they asked what's in it was already going in that direction.
Exactly.
They wanted to know the plan.
Exactly. Once you ask what's in it, then that means that you're not you're not embracing it. You're not throwing yourself into it with the passion of love. That is mamish. That medrash is definitive. Okay, so the point for us is this willingness to enter into that. It is scary. Okay, having said all that, right? So now I'm just so now having said all that, this is very, very important, right? This Moshe Rabbeinu has defined the nature of the relationship and has also now defined the nature of the luchot shniyim. By the way, you see something very beautiful, troubling and beautiful at once. In the Ramban says that the difference between Bechukosai and Kitavo is that Bechukosai is all about Galus Rishon, and Kitavo is all about Galus Sheni. This Ramban is in the Parsha. Right? So the Ramban says, he actually says it out in Bechukosai. Galus Rishon, so in Galus Rishon, the nature of the issues have to do just like with Matan Torah the first time. Galus Sheni has to do with the nature of issues of the Matan Torah the second time. In the first time, in a sense, there's no real acceptance of Torah Shabbal Peh. In this, right, which what the Tosfos says, right? In the second time, so there's an acceptance of the reality of Torah Shabbal Peh. The whole thing is built on Psol Lecha. Right? So right, if you look at the different britot, so you see in the first time there's very much, it's all about the mechanics, and the only solution of the issue of what has gone wrong in the first time is the zechira of the zchus avos, and they're having been promised that this people will not be destroyed, that they will have progeny. In the second one, that's not what saves it. And that's not what determines it. What saves it and determines it ultimately is going to be tshuva. In this week's Parsha, which is the hashlama of it, where, v'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha, you turn around and you want me. So now we're ready to walk together. It's an entirely different geder of what's happening. Just like here. The first time before Moshe Rabbeinu came down, so he says to God, Zechor es asher nishbata la'Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Okay, that's the level we're working on. So you got to keep your promise. But that's you outside there keeping your promise. But the second time around, he says, he doesn't mention the avos at all. He doesn't mention the avos at all. The only thing he says is, it's about chen, isn't it, God? It's about chen. Okay. And defines that halo b'lechtecha imanu. That's why in the first bris in Bechukosai, so basically what you're called upon to do is the kiyum haTorah. But in the second bris of Kitavo, what you're called upon is to be happy.
Which is much harder.
It's much harder if you're still living in the world of Bechukosai. Because you can never be happy if what you're doing is being a cog in someone else's machine. You won't be happy. You might be calm. You might be calm. And you might feel safe. But you'll never really experience simcha. B'simcha v'tuv levav mirov kol. I mean, mamish. Like that's what God says. That the reason you're going to be in galus is because you've lost simcha, tuv levav, and rov kol. Now you know what brings simcha. Listen carefully. Let me just take a sip of this.
We already established it was chemistry.
It's beferish. It's a Yerushalmi beferish, right? What brings simcha is Shechina.
Wait, isn't that?
Ushavta mayim b'sason, mimaynei hayeshua. So the Yerushalmi says Ushavta mayim b'sason. That's the coming of the Shechina at the Simchas Beis Shoeva, because they were sho'avim ruach hakodesh. So Ushavta mayim b'sason. What they are drawing forth is simcha. That's why they're so happy there, is because what they're drawing forth is Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh being the presence of Shechina.
That's the term used in Kisavo and in Nitzavik.
That's right. That's right. That's like an exhilarated joy, which comes from a deep contact with this joinder with existence, with this joinder with reality, in which it's not, there's reality and then there's little old me trying to figure it out. Where there's the life I need to live and where I'm blowing it all the time. There's God up there, almighty, and me bowing down to him. No. You are alive, man. You're alive. There's nothing more joyous than being alive. But not by the provision of titillation and exhilaration, but by the real experience of this kind of expanded presence, which comes by virtue of it not being outside of you, but by you being so intertwined with it that mamish, you're alive. That's what was happening there. That's Ushavta mayim b'sason, and that's what it means for the Shekhinah to be here. You can only talk about a brit that will involve simcha if you're willing, kiviyachol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is willing to enter into the brit on that level, and we're willing to enter into the brit on that level.
You can't buy that in the store.
You see that? That's the second, right? That's the second bris, and the second description. And it's also by his sheni. Right? So with the emergence of the Torah Shebal Peh as being a participant process. You hear that? We're saying this very... In the absence of the Shekhinah in the Mikdash. Right.
But in the hands of the Chachamim, as they say.
Yeah. Because so now we have, what we do have is the Dalet Amos of Halacha. We have our walking together. it's a disadvantage and an advantage. But obviously, when they're talking about the Simcha of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and they're talking about Shoavim Ruach HaKodesh and the Shechina being there. So, I mean, it's just not only in the Kodesh Kodashim, and it's not with that type of intensity, right? But it's Belech Dechaimanu. So, yeah, that's mamish what, I mean, that's the only thing really that a person can ever really be happy about, is that he's lived his life as a true living, and as a true living in the sense of it really being participant in the nature of what reality is, the nature of what existence is, and not as some, disconnected, disenchanted, disintegrated speck that's out of the fabric of what is. Okay. Yeah? More? We should talk about that more. I think that's good. This was all the Hakdama. An important one. But that's the way it works. By the way, obviously, that's the only way it works in marriage. What Chazal calls Simchas Ona. That's what they call it, the Simchas Ona. It's beautiful. Simchas Ona, isn't it Oneg HaOna? Isn't it the pleasure? The pleasure is obviously what is making the devek. But the simcha is the realization of the joinder of myself beyond myself. Literally, I'm no longer a mithalech. I'm no longer just walking inside myself, which is a siluk. I'm together. So Simchas Ona becomes the reflection of that. Mamish. It's just, I mean, it's real on its own, and it's also a mashal of life. But as soon as the couple is involved in some kind of self-conscious getting out of this as much as I can get out of it, there's no joy in that. They might get pleasure on the level of hana, but there's no joy. The joy is in the jointer. The joy is in the sha'achua. The joy is in the play of it. And the play of it is always a non-self-conscious kind of a play. It's got to be that way. That's mamish what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is offering us. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu has as a theme that's recurring here throughout the story in the language of chen. In the language of chen. Let's just take a look at that. That's today's additional contribution. Let's just take a look at what happens, right? Notice, right, that after when this interaction begins, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu's whole stance becomes it's almost like a courtship. Look at the way it starts in Shlishi. Vayomer Moshe Hashem. You said you're taking us out, but you haven't told me yet. Who? Who you're sending with me? You told me that you know me. And you also told me that you like me. How come you haven't told me yet? What's the matter? I mean, don't you really like me? I mean, don't I find a lot of chen in your eyes? Haven't we had so much together until now? Haven't you been calling me by your name and me by my name? I mean, this is real. This is real. If you really do like me, it's mamish Esther, it's like mamish Esther. So, hodieni nasdrachecha, veidacha. Because I want to get to know you better. Why do I want to get to know you better? So that the depth of the chen that's between us should be even more. It's all about chen. That's almost like an appendix, to what's really going on. What's really going on is the intensity of this love between Moshe and God. No longer Zechoras Avadecha, no longer Zechoras Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, no longer Zechoras Asher Nishbata. Do you love me? If you love me, then you'll want me to know you more so that I can love you more. This, by the way, in my opinion, is where the Rambam learns at the end of Hilchos Tshuva. He says, love is entirely a matter of the depth of knowing. And conversely, knowing is entirely a matter of the depth of loving. Because you can't see unless you have that kind of a passionate involvement and a sense of consanguinity, a sense of like mamish, we are of one flesh. Otherwise, why would I bother wanting to know? What do I want to know? I want to know about you. I mean, I do want to know about you, but really, ultimately, the drive is that we should know what is real, which is always going to involve me in knowing about myself. The more I know of you, it is so beautifully circling around itself, and this is exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu says. How will I know that matzati chen beinecha unless you're really at one in walking with us? That's how we discover the chen. This is exactly what the Torah says about why it is that a man will be with woman or not be with woman. Ki matzati chen beinecha, right? As in last week's parsha in Ketetzeh, right? It's all a matter of chen. It's all a matter of chen. And chen is really, in a sense, a truncation of the word chiyuni. Right? They come together in the sense of like the aliveness of it. Chiyuni is so alive. Right, and necessary. But the aliveness of it. Chiyuniyut is like and it's really in modern Hebrew, but the sense is there's chiyuni in the sense of essential, but there's having vital. That would be the English word. Thank you. Vital. It's vital, but it depends on who's saying vital. If he's trying to get more money for the Defense Department, then it's vital, or if he's talking about the vitality of a connection and relationship. Right? Which vital do you mean?
It's a vital relationship. Being like two very different things.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's interesting on its own. It's very interesting on its own. Mamish, but it's yeah. Huh? Oh, beautiful. What a chiddush. Chaim Vital. Okay, anyhow. Right. Okay, that's definitely an aside. But the point is the chen, right? The point is the chen. And what I think in terms of the narrative here is so striking about Moshe Rabbeinu's mom. It's mamish like a woman playing for the man. Like, don't you think I'm beautiful? Don't you love me? Haven't we talked about this before? Lo matzati chen beinach. But the result of that, right, is the Belech Techayim Manu. It's mamish what it is. It's Belech Techayim. Yeah.
First place we see this phrase is with Noah.
Absolutely, which is precisely what's going on, because when everything was built before, right? When everything was built before on Zechor, Asher Nishbata, etc. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for some reason, says, okay, you know what? Well, after all, I could wipe all of them out and leave you. I mean, you're one of their tzatzayim, so it wouldn't be a violation. We've done it before, exactly. And so Moshe Rabbeinu, hinting at that, right, says, if that's what you're going to do, mecheni na misifrecha asher katavta. Mecheni na being, right, this is a famous Vayimach kol hayakum. It's a reference back to that, and it's literally an anagram for Mei Noach. Mecheni is Mei Noach. We've been there before. But I'm not going to play that. And therefore, Mecheni, the Mei Noach reference, is back to, that was a certain kind of a chen. And that kind of a chen led to the salvation of one man. But as for me,
bigger stakes.
exactly. L'man emtza chen be'einecha u're'ei ki amcha hagoy hazeh.
That's the next stage.
It's a much, much, much larger picture. But the reason it's a much larger picture is because of Moshe Rabbeinu's breadth of vision. Because the breadth of vision that Moshe Rabbeinu has is of a creation which is of one fabric. And I can prove this to you. This is exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as I've said in the past, he's about to show him that. But as I've always explained, in showing him that, he's actually telling us what Moshe Rabbeinu has. Right, exactly. Because what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, does, what he shows Moshe, it's an amazing, amazing thing. And to appreciate this, you need to hear the Rambam. Right? So the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim has his whole analysis of this chapter that we're learning. It's in Perik Nun Daled there. So he says, Da, ki Adon HaChachamim Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom bikesh shtei bakashot. Uva'athu hatshuva al shtei bakashot. Moshe Rabbeinu asked two things, and he got two answers, right? Habakasha achat hi baksho mimenu yitbarach sheyodiehu atzmo v'amitato. That he should know God in his essence. Bakasha shenit, the second bakasha, v'yasher bikesh tchila, sheyodiehu midotav. You should show him his ways, his characteristics, right? So God says to him, I can show you my ways. But his essence will not be known. But now watch what brilliantly the Rambam does. I will show you the extent of what human consciousness can achieve. That I will give you. No one has ever had that level of awareness that Moshe Rabbeinu had. Okay. Olam. So now let me explain to you the psukim. He asked for knowing the ways. I'm going to skip things now, right? Because only when he knows the ways will he know him. Now I'm impressing in this the things that we've been saying, right? Even though the Rambam is not emphasizing them here or describing them here. It's just a beautiful passage, which almost is an aside in the Rambam, but it's really not an aside, it's the essence. And when he says Leman imtzachein be'einecha, he says the most amazing thing. More al shemi sheyeda ha'eloha hu asher yimtzachein be'einav. This means that the one who is beloved and cherished, whatever the word will be for chen in English, is cherished by God, is the one who knows him. Lo misha yatsum v'yitpalel avad. Not the guy who's fasting, not the guy who's davening. And as my son pointed out last week, and not the guy doing the mitzvahs, which the Rambam doesn't mention here, but is obviously on some level implied. What it is of essence and the center core is a da'acha. Now, I'll put the mitzvahs thing aside, which deserves its own exploration of the relationship between da'at and mitzvah, which there's a very profound one, obviously, for walking together. But in any case, the Rambam says, Lo mishiyatzum v'yitpalel levad. Avol kol mishiyadayehu hu hanirtzah. The one who knows him, who's aware of him, who has a broad enough consciousness to be involved with his drachim, hu hamikorav, umisha sechalo hu hanitzaf, hu hamiruchak. And the one who's a fool, blind, unconscious, he's the one who's distant. Okay. Then he asks, "V'kasher bikesh yidiyat ha'te'arim u'bikesh mechila ala umma v'nana b'mechilatam bikesh achar kein hasagat atzmo." Now I want to claim. I'm just going to put in interjecting something here. I want to claim that these are not two different events and not two different disconnected requests. In other words, what Moshe Rabbeinu is doing is asking for a knowing of God's essence in a way in which the request which he has made of Hodieni na drachecha will be fulfilled. One is not like other than the other, but rather one will serve the other. Okay, let's just listen to what the Rambam says here. V'hu amro hareini na kvodecha. Hareini na kvodecha, not just Hodieni na drachecha, hareini na kvodecha. Now, the Targum says hareini na kvodecha is show me the Shechina. Na'ana al hamevukash harishon v'hu hodieni na drachecha v'ne'emar lo ani avir kol tuvi al panecha v'ne'emar lo b'ma'aneh ha'sheila ha'shniya lo tuchal lirot et panai. Wait a minute. What is ani avir kol tuvi al panecha? Is that a response to the first one, or is that a response to the second one?
You just said it was a response to the first.
It sounds like a response to the first. I agree. I think it is. Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha is a response to the first. Yet, if you look at the psukim, it comes after he asks for hareini na kvodecha. Okay, that's fine. That's not a problem. Onelo rishon al rishon rishon al sheni sheni. Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha v'karati b'shem Hashem lefanecha v'chanoti et asher achom v'richamti et asher arachem. All of this is a response to the first. You have established everything about the nature of what's going to be between us as being between us. And that is the reality of Chen. The only way in which that can be achieved is through Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha. You have to have the whole picture. You have to have the whole picture. And that, the Rambam then goes on and he says, Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha, where the Rambam learns, what does that mean, kol tuvi? Hu remez laharot oto hanimtzaiot kulam, hanemar alem v'ayar elohim et kol asher asa v'hinei tov me'od. V'tzoni lomar v'harot otam lo, שישיג טבעם והקשרם, או והיקשרם, קצתם בקצת, וידע הנהגתו להם איך היא בכלל ובפרט. The only way that you're going to be able to achieve having chen with me and being able to walk with me is if you have the breadth of the vision of the nature of things and of all the different possible interconnections between them. You see how different this is from Noach's chen. Noach's chen is entirely individual. But Moshe Rabbeinu's chen is existential with a capital E, is a expression of the breadth of his realization. The only thing that could be meaningful is a relationship in that, with that scope and scale of Kol Tuvi. So it's just to put it back in the context we were talking. We just really began something, right? But it's totally anathema to what he's asking for him to accept what Noach accepted, because, and this is the nature of the difference between a mechanical vision and a universal one, which includes all of the different interconnections between all things from distance and nearby. Namely, that in a mechanical description, it can be, okay, save me, save me. And it's true, I'm part of what you have promised to the Avos. I'm part of that. So, fine, I'll grow the new nation. But if your vision is a holistic one, that's aren't you writing a book? Doesn't a book involve a communication that is intertwining all of the different elements of that communication? How can you even talk about such a thing? It's only because he's asking Hodieni na drachecha from a vision of Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha that Moshe Rabbeinu is completely unwilling to accept that it would only be him, and able to envision such a possibility of man and God truly walking together. Because how could we possibly walk together if we're not exposed to the breadth and the scope of what reality is? Then it would just be like Eliezer described, just, me and my will. That's not about me and my will. It's about the embeddedness of my will in the vastness of what existence is, coming to expression in the specific name that I have and specific expression that I am. That's the description not only of Moshe and his vision for each individual, it's a description of the nature of what Klal Yisrael is. It's the only meaning of Klal Yisrael. The only meaning of Klal Yisrael is in as much as we serve the expression of the entirety of mankind. Shivim nefesh, shivim umos. It's the only meaning of it. It's all one. You see how it's all tied together here. I think I'm saying it clearly. I'm keeping the different strands separated, right? But you see, it's one very big picture. And this is how the Rambam learns on Yavir Kol Tuvi. Of course, Tov, right, is always the antithesis of separateness, of disenchantment, of disengagement. That's what Tov has always been for us, right? Lo Tov heyot adam levado. That's the ontological definition. So Ani Avir Kol Tuvi, the Rambam immediately says, oh, I see, that means not only what they are, but how they interrelate. It's beautiful. Wow, it's beautiful. And so Moshe Rabbeinu's, we've just kind of started something now, but Moshe Rabbeinu's vision here is just so amazing in terms of what it means to reconstruct what the bris is, and to describe what the possibility of living really is, of really living, of really loving, of really being passionate, of really having joy, being able to walk together. Okay, so then an introduction to the next step. I think we won't do such a thorough review next time. It was very worthwhile on its own, and we'll have our final shiur, which will bring us, not our final, to the Day of Judgment, to Rosh Hashanah, exactly, which is really the next piece, which we'll see in another piece in the Rambam that he brings. If you want to read it, by the way, in advance, then since I happen to know what I was going to talk about today, that is no guarantee that I know what I'm going to talk about next time. But I do happen to know what I was going to talk about today, and that is the Rambam. That's the Rambam in Perek Nun Aleph of Chilei Gimel. Okay, we've explored that in the past, right? But now we want to see it like this version.
In its larger context.
Yeah, it's larger context. Okay. So, questions, participations.
I just love it that modern language, that essentially what God is showing him is the back end. Right? Everything.
What does that mean? Tell me.
Meaning how everything actually comes together, as opposed to its expression is how it's experienced.
It's a website. You talk about the front end and the back end. The front end is what you see, and the back end is all the processing that happens.
How it actually comes to be, like the
where the data is stored, the code, the server. That's the back end of the website. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it is, and it's more essential reality because like the front end is about the experience.
And the back end is where you get involved.
Well, that's ultimately, yeah.
That's right.
That's where I stay away from it, but I'm fascinated by the language.
No, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful image because it takes a real umanus to be able to get involved. It's like we were talking before. We had, when we were having the conversation before about Shemitah.
Yeah.
And the planters and the roof, and the Rambam and Bikurim, and the nature of the relation between Shabbos and Shemitah, and can you relate, those two sugyas, and how that involves you in a question of details in halacha. If all you have is the front end, like you were talking about, so then you have these books that they just the front end always takes the safe route. The back end is where the adventure is. The back end is where the life is. The back end is where the vitality is. The front end is the guy sitting and watching the screen. Which then, really, literally, then you have to figure out ways to get him excited by doing all kinds of images and stuff to get him excited. But the guy in the back end doesn't need images to get himself excited. He's excited because this is him. This is me, man. This is like, wow. It's like what I am and what this is become together in one. Like the nature of the medium and who I am become intertwined with each other. It's the medium is defining who I'm becoming, and who I'm becoming is defining how the medium is going to play itself out. And we'll develop new types of media which are going to now play themselves out in the medium which I have defined, but I haven't defined because the medium itself had an interplay with the nature of the definition of what I am. That's vital. That's vital. But you hear that's exactly it's almost organismic. It's like there's a kind of an interchange that's going on that is a creative excitement. It's almost like a sexual excitement because of that kind of an interchange of energies. But that's mamish literally what's going on, right? With HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what I was talking about before. HaKadosh Baruch Hu asking you who you want to be, created as. Like, what the heck is that, if not what I just described? Okay. Yeah, but that's what Torah has to be. You see, only Torah Shabbal Peh, only the second, right, of Parshas Ki Tavo, which by the way, Bia is that. Parshas Ki Tavo is about that, and so you can talk about Simcha, you can talk about Tuv Levav. I'm just finishing this essay now about like the Tuv Levav, which the Chazal learned the Tuv Lev as being music. And now we understand why. That's what they learned, like, where do you know that there's music in the Mikdash from? Because it says Simcha v'Tuv Levav. The Gemara says, wait a minute, but Torah is Simcha. After all, it says, Pikudei Hashem Mesamchei Lev. Yeah, I know, the Gemara says, but it doesn't say Tov, which is odd on its own, but let's just stay in the Sugya, right? It doesn't say Tov. And Heitivu es Asher Nigenu, right? Heitivu is a lashon of music. What? What? It's absolutely insane. No, it's not, because music is precisely the experience that we're just talking about now. So you're in this medium, and you're playing, and as you play, so the playing itself becomes something which plays back to you, which then you play, and then it becomes this. Who started this thing, man? Who started that riff? Like, where'd this come from? What's going on around here? But that's exactly it. That's what Tov is. That's what Ani Avir Kol Tuvi Al Panecha has to be. So it's going to involve you in Simcha, but there's a kind of a Simcha which is one kind of a Simcha, which is, the joy of existence per se, and there's a deeper kind of a Simcha which is Simcha v'Tuv Levav, which is a musical Simcha, which is the participation in it. That's the vitality. That was in Parshas Ki Tavo. That's the vitality which can only be when you are invited to participate in it. That's what we said before. If you want to live, you got to work. If you want to live, you got to work. Otherwise, you'll just be on the front side. So you think the front side?
Be a consumer.
Yeah, you think the front side is, well, I'm the one who's being provided for. This is very nice for me. I like this screen. Can you make it more exciting? Could you make it more titillating? As his keres, what's that called in English?
Belly.
His belly. As his belly's growing, you can make this even more interesting for me. It's kind of getting boring. Okay, we'll come up with something for you. It's like, what way to live? But on a certain sense, that's what living on the front end is. But it's never joyous. It's never joyous. There's never Tuv Lev there. The Tuv Lev is always in the Achorai. The Simcha is always in the Achorai. And that's the depth of what's going on here. You don't really want to know my essence, do you, Moshe? Ki lo yirani adam v'chai. The deeper meaning of that, right? In terms of the personal meaning of that, I don't know if it's the deeper meaning, but the personal meaning of that is not that you'll be blown out of the waters and all this you'll be blown away and you can never look at the sun and all this like philosophical stuff of why you cannot ever really know God, because if you're trying to know God, then you're going to blood out of, cease to be, and blood out of. Okay, all that is true, but isn't the point. Isn't the point in the context of what Moshe is asking for? It's not the point. What Moshe is asking for is for chen, which means vitality. And so you don't want to really see me, do you, Moshe? Because then you'll stop living. And that's what you were asking for, is to live. So what I will show you is Ahorai. I'll show you the backside. I'll show you the backside, and that's where you can get involved. It comes down with the Luchos Shneim and the possibility of Tosh about that.
The back end of that which is shared.
It's the back end. It's the back end, which is that which is shared. Which is that which is shared. This is, by the way, the Gemara says this almost befeirush, in a sense, right? The Gemara says, why did the Luchos HaRishonim not last, and the Luchos HaShneim, yes, last? So there's a few Manda Amrim. One Manda Amar is because the first ones were not B'tznius, and the second ones are B'tznius, which is just a way of saying the first ones were not intimate. The second ones were intimate. It's just between us. It's just between us. So beautiful. And the second thing the Gemara says, because in the first ones, the word tov doesn't appear. But in the second ones, there's the word tov. And man yitavlach is only in the luchos as they are described in Parshas Veschanan, which, according to this medrash, is the second luchos. It wasn't in the first luchos. But now we understand why. Because tov was only in the second luchos. Because tov appears after ani avir kol tuvi al panecha, as a response to what you asked for. You asked for this. You're the one who said lo toveos adam levado Moshe, and said there needs to be tov here by saying hodieni nazdrachecha l'man emtzachein beinecha. You asked for it. Ani avir kol tuvi. Boom! In the second luchos, there's tov. That's why they last, because that's the only thing that can last. By the way, and with I'll close. I know we're getting, By the way, that's why it's in Parshas Veschanan. Because it's a result of Moshe's asking for chen. And God saying, V'achanoti et asher achon. So the second luchos come out in Parshas Veschanan. Because they are a product of the request for chen, and they are the ability to live with chen. They give us the ability to live in chen. Okay. Stop. Yeah, say something.
So
Something. I need to hear you guys.
The request for chen can only really come from the experience of chen.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the way you were reading Moshe Rabbeinu kind of asking Hashem, like as you could say, like, Hashem, why haven't you answered me? Like you could say it in a different tone.
Right.
Like
begging.
You never tell me you love me.
Right. But he doesn't say it that way.
No.
That's right.
But the difference between those two is a shift, it's a state shift that I experience in my life, my living. And the differences are like, you can only ask from it from the place you were suggesting if you're connected with chen, if you're connected with this bigger, the breadth of the connection.
Right.
And it's like it's both amazing and frustrating at times to be on the outside of that connection, having a sense of it, a touch of it, a memory of it, and like, so what's my way in? How do I get in order to really then be asking from that place and be
beautiful.
From a Voda perspective, that's where I'm like.
Beautiful, beautiful. And can I make a suggestion, or maybe we'll go into the room with some of this suggestion, because very, very beautiful. I gave over something the other night that you guys pretty heavily advertised, this thing that Makor Chaim did at the Gavna, and if you saw advertisement, it was a beautiful, beautiful evening, beautiful evening. So I gave over this. What would be the path to that? What would be the path to that? And part of the path to that is clearly zichronos. Zichronos are there. Zacharti la chesed nurayich, v'klulotayich, right? Haben yakir li Ephraim, Yelish Hashuim, midei dabribo, zachor ez kerenu od. I remember him more. And I want to just tell you something in my own life and experience of it's not easy raising kids, as I've mentioned, and And
Next morning.
I just remember, I want to share with you something. It's real. I know it's been a long morning already, but it's the price of coming on time, I guess. We'll cancel that. In any case, so, but the part this is a really deep thing. It's a really deep practical thing. So I'm with one of my sons growing up, and I'm feeling distance growing. It's part of it, feeling distance growing, and noticing how much of that distance growing is me really not, what can I say, like not liking him, on a certain level. Talked about a little, just like not liking him, so it's feeling the distance growing. And part of it is also the way he looks and the way he's acting and where it's going, etc. So I worked very hard on remembering him as a child. It's a very chendik child. And every child is chendik, just a matter of which age you need to go back to. Okay. But there's going to be an age when you can remember that chen. And so I worked very hard on that. This is similar to something I once told you about with a different son and love. But this was just like remembering him as as when he was about 7, 8. It's mamish like such chen, and feel more and more of that chen. And so I worked on that a lot, and just like just like sat in that. And when he came home, there was like an opening. There's a different kind of an opening, certainly for me in my heart, and even for him to the extent that he was able, and it was like there was something different. It was really something different, and it wasn't just a projection. It was something different about what he chose to talk about with me, and how it worked out. Like the situation worked out that there was something for us to do together, and we needed to do it, and and I was mitaking certain things that he had once complained that when we were working on the sukkah, you backed out, and I had to take care of it, and he was like angry about that, and like he once said that to me, and without my thinking about it, I realized afterwards like we were thrown into this situation of like having to get something done together, and we're doing it together, and all of a sudden like here we are like learning about each other, being with each other, and I totally committed that the shift in consciousness that came by virtue of the power of Zechira enabled us to reestablish this base level chen, which is there. So I say that also is like you're so beautiful what you're pointing out. There seems to be some kind of like a tautology here almost. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying like, after all, you told me that I'm motzei chen beinecha, so therefore I want to be motzei more chen beinecha, so that I'll be motzei more chen beinecha, and you'll be motzei chen beinai. Wow. And then God says, okay, v'chanoti et asher achon, and you have your kol tuvi. This is what you're asking for. You're asking for that level, but it's a bechina of zechira. I believe that has to do. This also can lead us towards, because it has a lot to do with the zichronos on Rosh Hashanah. Definitely, God is remembering us as little children. Remembering, beautiful. Remembering, right? We've talked about that as like creating context, but there's something deeper here now. It's saying it's like there's a remembering that can be re-established. Yeah, a reawakening of the chen. Yeah, but I like very much what you're pointing out, that like if you say it from this place of I don't feel loved, how come you never told me you love me? Don't you love me? As opposed to
just experientially that lacks all chen. Just think about it, and it's like, oh,
it's gross.
Yeah, that's off-putting.
Yeah.
Okay, as opposed to, but it's such a subtle shift. As opposed to
Criticism and aspiration.
there's chen between us. I'm looking for more of that.
So much more inviting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And touches that memory of chen in me.
And touches. Mm-hmm.
If you say that to me, it's like, all right, even if I'm not feeling it right now, it's like
Wait a minute.
Oh, like there is.
Hodieni, tell me a little more about that. Tell me more about the way you are. The more we know, the more chen will be between us. Oh, overstep the mark. Hareini not kvodecha. Show me the essence. Are you sure you want that, Moshe? You can't live like that, because the living is in the joinder. It's not in you knowing me as some stasis, an entity. No, can't live like that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Orach Tuvach. Beautiful. He already knew what he was asking for. He asked for the Targum. Orach Tuvach.
Not just Orach Tuvach.
The way of your toe. Oh, beautiful. Okay. Toe.
It's interesting. The Targum consistent, almost consistently, in this parsha,